All right. This is Thanks for the Feedback, a podcast about brands and culture and the intersection of both and all the shit that happens when, things happen. I'm Zoe and this is Kerri. Um, and today we're going to be talking about Everlane being acquired by Shein. Shein? Shein.
Shein.
So give me the background because you probably paid attention to the actual details. I did not.
So I have a particular interest in this space, obviously coming from Club Monaco, because Everlane was a brand we comped to often. And I know they've been shopping around for a bit. And they've been talking to, I think, a few different firms. I know like the valuation has fluctuated. And so it seems recently this conversation with Shein was like brought to the table. I am shocked that that's where they sold to. I think based on being a brand that was founded in transparency and sustainability and good business practices, it feels crazy to me. What I think is more interesting, though, is like why Shein would want to acquire them. And I've not
Right.
seen a ton of commentary on how they're looking to use this acquisition to position their portfolio differently or, whatever the way in may have been. And so I'm curious to see if anybody does like think pieces on that in the coming weeks. But I do think, looking at it from a private equity perspective, they were obviously owned by a private equity. And watching the way that this deal went through, seemingly being completely at odds with everything that this brand stood for, made me feel some kind of way about the way private equity operates in the mass fashion space, which we talk about all the time. But I just really like talk about incongruencies and just like cognitive dissonance. When I read the news, I was like, oh, this feels so bizarre.
Yeah, it's actually funny because I feel like, news pops off about brands all the time. Obviously recently was the Allbirds acquisition for like
Yep.
$3. And, this one this one got sent to me by a lot of people. And it was like very
Yeah.
much like a topic of conversation because I think everyone was floored by it.
Yeah.
And like to your point, like I think Sheen kind of I don't know how they're gonna use it for their positioning. Like I also in my mind I'm just like Sheen is like a warehouse somewhere with like paid media marketers and then like
Right.
6-year-olds just like making shirts, And
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna use it for. Also, like I kind of forgot about Everlane. But
I know.
it really is like they fucking sold out in like the worst way possible.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I thought was so interesting around it and like sort of brings it back to brand is again, not so much on the Everlane side, but on the Shein side and like, why do people feel so icky about it? And why does it feel so weird? And I think it's because the way that Shein operates, obviously it's fast fashion. So that in and of itself feels at odds with the entire ethos of an Everlane. But I think it's also because they are so about dupe culture. It's fast, it's like knocking off a trend, it's moving on to the next thing. There is no longevity in the pieces. And when you're purchasing them, they are disposable inherently. And I was sort of thinking to myself, like, what makes a Shein feel different than like a Quince, right? Because
Mm,
it is the same thing. I think that Quince has just done a better job of packaging value and customer perception because
yeah.
they're saying the quality is the same. We're just not, and it's actually more in line with where Everlane used to be, right? And if they had said like Quince acquired Everlane, I would be like, yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense to me because the way that they position their product is like, we're not using trash materials. We're actually creating things that like maybe it's not of the highest standard, but it's an acceptable, pretty good standard. And we're actually cutting out a lot of the cost for the consumer. That to me
Yeah.
makes a whole lot more sense. But like is it really that much different than what Shein was doing? I don't know.
I mean, Quince is so interesting because like when they first, I mean, I guess when I first heard about them, they were making like Jenny Kane sweater dupes, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's like my sister-in-law was like, I found this site, it's called Quince, and they make literally Jenny Kane sweaters that are
Yep.
$100. And I was like, cool. And now they make like dupe AirPods. You know what I mean? Like they make
Yeah.
fucking dupe everything. And I'm like, okay, I don't know where the line is between that and Sheen. It's like I don't know. They're both just like shitty dupe companies that do whatever they can to I don't know, ruin the planet and like sell shit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
do
don't know.
think though, when I think about positioning, I'm like, it's it's an interesting mental gymnastics exercise that you have to do, because I'm like, at just gut reaction, Quince or Shein. Quince. Like I wouldn't even think about it. And I'm like, that is all a product of how they've positioned themselves and how they've actually maybe invested a little bit more in brand recently. Like the
Yeah.
hire that they just made for like their, I think, head of brand and narrative, who I actually worked with when I was at Club and she was at The Ordinary, is an
Hmm.
incredible storyteller and marketer. And I think you just see companies who are aware of how the public perceives them and how they actually want to be the first to be able to engineer that narrative a little bit, making investment in brand. And I think that is the differentiator when we're looking at like a quick off the cuff customer perception of like why maybe on paper they look the same, but like to a consumer, I'm like, oh, Quince feels a little bit more like where I would play.
No, 100%. I agree. It's it's just so shocking. Like, I don't know, like from a brand perspective and also just like I don't know, it's just it's so disheartening to see a brand like Everlane, and not that I own anything Everlane or
Yeah.
am a fan or whatever, but it almost just feels like, and again, not that they're one of the good guys because like it's all branding, it's all storytelling, whatever, but like it just feels like another brand bites the dust, and
Yeah.
it's like eh, you know, and not even in the Allbirds way of their valuation being so low that it was just like a slap in the face and shocking to everyone of just kind of
Yeah.
like what that brand became. But just like, I feel like in this world, like so many brands are just like trying to fight the good fight of like, let's do good shit and like try to do good shit. And like, you can't.
Yeah. No. Well, I think it's a crazy commentary on customer culture, right? Because I think you had brands like Everlane in the like prime millennial D2C era, and you made a big bet on customers giving a shit, that they actually found value in a better supply chain, in more transparent practices, in sustainability. And I think what you find is people give a shit to a certain extent. And then when it becomes a little too expensive or a little too inconvenient, they actually don't care that much. And I think that's what you're starting to see with the way that consumer behavior is changing even now. It's like you hear all the time Gen Z is the most like cause marketing motivated generation that maybe we've ever had. But then you look at things popping off like cider, like Shan, like all of this, and it's like you're buying into dupe culture left and right. How much can you actually really care? And so I think it's like customers care in air quotes, but like when the brass tacks of it all comes into play, they don't care enough.
No, totally. It's like people care about shit until it like actually really impacts them. You know, they're like social warriors or like advocacy warriors just for the sake of doing it. And then it's like turns around, it's like, oh, actually, that's a little bit too expensive for me. Or like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, and I don't know. I that honestly can make me spiral into like so many things that I get like outraged about. But yeah, no, it's true. I mean, you look at fast fashion now and it's like the amount of people who scream about like the planet being on fire are literally just wearing Zara,
Yeah.
H&M, Shein, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And you're just like living as like you're in contradiction to yourself, you
Well, I
know?
think it's kind of incredible the amount of like cognitive dissonance that like consumers can hold. Um,
Yeah,
and like, yes, I think one of it is like the price sensitivity of it all. Of like, there's a certain threshold of what I am willing to pay because of what I see as valuable in this slower process, more transparency, etc. But I also think there is the reality of people don't really care. I think to your point, people like to say they care, and it's like the thing that you probably should care about. But when push comes to shove, we're so used to convenience. We are so used to accessibility. I think like the state of the world economically right now is a whole other thing that like people really
for
are
sure.
up against
Yeah,
some serious things in terms of where they will spend their money. But I think about the Amazon of it all, right? Like I was shopping for something the other day and it was a brand from Italy and it was like a handmade blah 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 thing. Gorgeous, right? Loved it, had to have it. I am at the point of checking out in my cart and it's not going to ship for 2.5 weeks. And I'm like, hard no, because
right.
I am used to being able to go on Amazon, prime something, I have it here at my house the next day. And I'm like, at what point are we as consumers just so tainted by the convenience economy that it actually is hard to build inherent value in anything that can't deliver on that like Amazon timeline within a certain price range?
I also will say, nice flex saying that you buy handmade Italian things instead of going to Shein. So, okay,
You know,
noted.
she's a responsible consumer. At the end of the day, I didn't
Um,
buy it. Like, how responsible am I really? But
no, that's so true. No, I know it's convenience is such a luxury that I think people. I've been thinking about this is so stupid, but I've been thinking about this a lot in the context of like apartment living, right? Like
yeah.
you have all different types of apartments around New York, you have doorman buildings, walk ups, this and that. And like your version of what luxury means to you
Yeah.
is it's subjective, right? Obviously, it's like what
Yep.
you want. And so like obviously this is so obnoxious. I'm like, I love the convenience of living near trains and I love the convenience of having doorman to like collect
Yeah.
packages. That to me is like my version of luxury and convenience and something that I want to pivot my money for. Do I have like the best view? No, because I look at another doorman building, but like, there's certain things and then but other people want the convenient or want the luxury of having more space in a backyard. And so maybe they move to a different part of, I don't know, Brooklyn or Queens or wherever that like maybe has less access to trains, but the luxury for them is the backyard and the more square
Yeah.
footage. So it's kind of just like I mean, and everyone's entitled to their own version of what luxury and convenience or whatever like means to them. But I feel a lot of the time that like in a world like fast fashion, it's very contradictory to I think what a lot of people kind of like advocate for. And I mean, like I
Yeah.
sit here like I love a single use plastic bottle. You know what I mean? But I won't buy Shein. Like, get me a plastic water bottle every fucking day, but I'm not buying fast fashion because that's where I draw the line.
Yeah. Yeah. It is an arbitrary line, I will say.
What are you gonna do?
Nothing. I will do nothing.
That's right.
I do think though, with that in mind, and this idea of like everybody's perception of value is so individual and personal. And now everybody's algorithm is so individual and personal. What does that mean for marketers in terms of like archetyping customers or being able to like segment your audience in a way where you can sort of develop messaging or value props or approaches that can blanket a wider demographic? And I just think it's such an interesting thing to think about because, I think in the D2C world, there was sort of this one-to-one approach where millennial consumers behaved differently than I think a lot of consumers before. And so you could target them in a broad group that still felt personal and one to one because it was at odds with how the market was operating before. And I'm like, how do you do that now when it's so fragmented, it's so specific, it is so individualized? Like, is that more micro creators? Is it more influencers? Is it actually like more community driven stuff where you're connecting with smaller audiences IRL? Like, I don't know the answer, but I think it's something it's crazy to think about in the way that it's really changed.
Well, it kind of gets into the point that you and I talk about a lot, which is like how can a brand be everything to everyone? And you can't
Yeah.
be, right? But it also kind of goes back to why brands end up having like 8 primary points in their like messaging, right?
Yeah.
Which as we know is insane. But also you can talk yourself in circles about it all fucking day, just being like,
Yep.
well this is important. This is important to this person, but what if they see this but not this? And it's like at some point you do just have to like own it and like stand up for it. But like at the end of the day, you really have to pick like the one or two things that you like hang your hat on, because like
Yeah.
every product is going to have a million points of differentiation, or like a lot if you try.
Yeah.
But like it's really about like what are you going to lean into and like fucking own it. And I just feel like people don't own it. It's not like a housewife line, like own it. But like, do you know what I mean? It's like that's where I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of brands that get in trouble, where it's just like, how do you do it, right? And it's like TikTok is interesting because you could have like a bunch of content that lives there because your
Yeah.
audience is so big because they just serve it out to everyone. But yeah, I don't know. It's like the diversification of your audience becomes
Almost
so,
like dilutive to the like message you're trying to sell in a way.
yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like our issue with like every brand going into retail, where it's like you can't offend like middle America, but then also like you can't alienate like the people on the coasts because like they're gonna make it cool. Also, sorry for literally everyone I just offended, but whatever.
You just
But
really did
like
like in one fell swoop. It was like the entirety of the population. I don't know how you managed to do that, but you nailed it. 100%. 10 out of 10.
but it is that, right? It's like
Yeah.
you like the majority of the country lives in, you know, strip malls or regular malls or whatever, and it's,
Yeah.
but then you also need a piece of it to be like aspirational. And I think that brands have such a hard time deciding on like who they're going to go for and what aspirational looks like to them.
Looks like.
um
Yeah.
and it just
Yeah.
becomes this kind of like diluted messaging where you're just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and like I don't know who the fuck to message to, and it's complicated. But you at
It
some point you
is.
just have to like own it and lean in.
One thing I think is super sticky about the owning it. I was just having a conversation with someone 2 weeks ago about this. I think every brand, whether you are a new to market brand and you're building the foundation, or you are a legacy brand and you're just doing a refresh because you want to appear to the consumer in a more modern way, the idea of ownability, I think, is something that people get so fucking hung up on of like, can we really say this? Is this really ownable? And I think at the end of the day, it's just about who says it the loudest and the most frequently. It doesn't have to be 100% unique to you because there are so very few things that are going to be able to be unique and scalable. And so it's just about being loud and proud.
It's
That's
about
it.
being loud and proud, and it's about saying it with so much like blind confidence
Yes.
that no one can second guess you, right?
Yes.
And it's like if you go in there and you were like, I mean, do you remember the period of time in like the D2C world where all of the paid ads were like the most comfortable pajamas
Oh
like you'll
my
ever
God.
have, the most comfortable
Yes.
joggers you'll ever wear, like the lightest
Yes.
shoes you'll ever buy. And like that was a really good example of like blind confidence and being like,
Yeah.
we are the best this. Like when I was at Rockets, we did the most awesome kids clothes, right? And it's like, yeah, that
Yeah.
was like the trend of like how paid media was working in that time. And but it was like the blind confidence of like leaning in, owning your messaging no matter what, and being like, you don't think I'm like the softest jogger you'll ever have? Like, go fuck yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like that loudness and the confidence is like It's all marketing.
It's all marketing, baby.
Sure is. Well, we are at time.
We
Uh,
are.
there's a quickie. Um, and I just want to take this opportunity to have another moment to talk about Can. Uh, you don't know this, but now I'm going to be gunning for Can to sponsor our podcast.
Fantastic. I mean,
Um,
we're a seltzer loving crew over here. Like there's
we
definitely
are.
maybe there's like some category exclusivity to be had. I don't know.
Maybe. My girlfriend calls it spicy water.
I
So
love that. That would be a
if that's at all
great brand
inspiring,
name. Yeah, that's
spicy
inspiring for are
water.
we gonna launch a seltzer brand? Should we?
Spicy water, here we
Spicy
come.
water? Let's do it, baby.
Great. Thanks, Claire.
Thanks, Claire.